Okay. Wonderful to join you. And thank you so much for inviting me. Special thanks to Daniel Perez and the entire planning committee for inviting me to be a part of this yet again. And who would have imagined that I think, second year in a row, we are doing this via Zoom, which has become such a part of our lives. But what it tells us is, despite the challenging times that we have been in, that we somehow learn to adapt and we learn resiliency. And I think there's some really great lessons here, especially for and about all of our neighborhood councils in Los Angeles, that sense of community is not just merely about geography. It's about so many other things. And there are many ways that we can continue to create community and to come together. As many of you know, I started my career in public service and my obsession with everything having to do with the city and its finances as a member of my own neighborhood council. I got involved as on my neighborhood association, which then led to getting onto my neighborhood council, becoming a budget advocate. And then one thing led to another. I became chair of two city financial commissions, and then did the crazy thing to run for controller. And I've been doing that now for 8 years, a job that I absolutely love and consider myself to be very privileged to have. What I often say is that, on the one hand, it is the most deceptive title of all of the elected officials, in that I do not get to control everything. But it is my job to keep the finances in some semblance of control, plus to do a variety of other things as controller. But what I love about this job is that I get to stick my nose into just about anything that I want, hopefully in a constructive and a meaningful and in a purposeful way that can do some good, because we have an amazing, complex, bureaucratic city government. And we have such an opportunity to make a difference in people's lives. What I wanted to talk really briefly about is the role of the city controller. For those of you who don't know it in detail, a little bit about the city budget and the city budget process, where the city stands fiscally, and a variety of reports and resources available from my office, including a variety of them that are COVID related. I serve as the city's financial officer, auditor, paymaster, accountant. All the dollars that get spent by the city for goods and services and payroll come through the office of controller. We do the financial forecasting. We also do all sorts of financial reports and track where the budget is at any given moment in time. And we do audits, both financial and performance. And we started essentially the open data initiative of the city now almost 8 years ago. And you're going to see some examples of that. My belief is that we really open up the doors, the windows, the skylights of the city for everybody to see, both the good and the bad. And it's through that transparency that we can achieve a greater level of accountability and effectiveness. Some of the new things that we've got, one is a feature called Inside LA City Finances. It's a new dashboard. Hopefully will be showing up on your screen. Aha, there magically, it has appeared. And this brings together a whole variety of different things that we've had for quite a while. Everything from our virtual checkbook with every payment made over the course of the last 10 years, searchable, downloadable, Facebookable, tweetable, searchable by vendor and by more. We also have every single one of the 700 some special funds of the city, what's going in, what's going out, 40 columns of data, including contact information for the people who are responsible for that account, information on debt capacity, payroll, position by position, pay period by pay period, breakdowns of the city budget and how we're doing, and much, much more. It really was meant to take a lot of the various features that we have had over time and bring them into one place. I'm proud to say that it's really kind of the first of its kind in the nation. Um, I have not seen any other city put it together quite in the same way. And it's really meant to be a tool for those within city government, as well as a tool for each and every single one of you, advocates, neighborhood council members, constituents, people who live and work in LA, because I believe that it's really vital that we have that engagement. And the only way that we can really create a better system is to have as many people engaged as possible. And I think that this is an important and a key part of it as well. We, of course, do revenue forecasting for the city. Each year we have been extremely accurate. I will say last year, as of March, things changed a lot and very quickly, as we all know. Certain revenue sources that we were anticipating, such as particularly hotel revenue related sources, parking related revenues, tourism related revenues, those actually, the bottom fell out of some of those revenues, as you might imagine. Thankfully, what we did have was a strong enough reserve. What we had also was a growth in cannabis revenues. You can make your own judgment of what all of that means. Also, we saw a significant increase in property tax revenues because despite the pandemic, or perhaps because of it, property prices have continued to rise, as I think we all know, particularly residential property. We also got $745 million in CARES Act money from the federal government. That was to be used specifically for COVID-related purposes. We created a dashboard to show where something like $1.1 billion so far and counting on COVID-related purposes has been spent. How much of it for PPE, how much of it for overtime, how much of it by department, many different ways to dice and to slice that. And also, we have now gotten half of the $1.28 billion that we are getting pursuant to the American Rescue Plan. It's really a once in a generation infusion of dollars to the city and to many other jurisdictions as well. And we lay out how this is going to be spent: about 181 million to alleviate homelessness, neighborhood enhancements of 30 million, justice and equitable neighborhood investments of 133 million, COVID response and recovery 40 million. And again, the details are here. What I have urged the city to do is to really be very thoughtful how we spend this, because this kind of infusion, as I said, comes once in a generation. And we want to make sure that whatever we create in terms of programming is sustainable. I think that that's absolutely crucial. We don't want to come to a point where we use it when we don't have it anymore, and then we have to make cuts. There are a lot of different ways that we visualize this data, and it's really meant to be able to derive a lot of different lessons. Some of the resources that we put out, particularly COVID related, is a COVID resource hub, and that has tracked since the beginning of the virus, neighborhood by neighborhood, community by community in Los Angeles, looking at it by race, by ethnicity, by gender, by age. What we know is that the prevalence of the virus and unfortunately of mortalities was very much higher in our communities of color, in communities that already faced a lot of financial burdens. And what we also know is that certainly early on when it came to vaccinations, that those same communities that needed it so badly are the ones that it was lagging in. That gap has closed to a good extent, but not to a full extent by any means. And this is really meant to be a guidepost to see where is it that we need to, as a city, as a county, be allocating our resources in a way that gets the message out, gets vaccines into people's arms, gets them the help that they need. As part of this COVID-19 resource hub, we also have created links with hundreds of city, county, state, federal resources for vaccines, for testing and treatment, for city services, utilities, legal assistance. We also have special boxes that we created if you are a homeowner, if you're a renter, if you're a freelancer, if you're a small business person, if you're an immigrant, and these are kept updated on a constant basis. And as part of this, we also launched a first ever food map, originally city, then county, now a statewide food map with something like 1,800 different food banks and food pantries mapped with information about their hours, their location, websites, and much more. Gratified to say that people are using it, but I often say that disturbing to say that it became the #1 feature on my website, telling me an awful lot about the level of food insecurity, which certainly predated COVID, but has become exacerbated as a result of COVID. And we try to keep this as updated and as accurate as we possibly can. Of course, many of these places change over time, what they're providing, their hours, etc. But it's really meant to be a resource that will hopefully be useful to anybody that you know that needs it. We, of course, do a whole variety of different kinds of reports on just about everything affecting and impacting the city. Some of the recent ones that we've done are looking at the city's 311 service. We mapped exactly what kind of services are being requested where, how quickly the response is happening. And 311 has been transitioning from a very much a phone-based operation to an app-based operation. And you can see neighborhood by neighborhood, what is the breakdown of graffiti removal versus illegal dumping versus bulky items versus appliances, and much, much more. Again, meant to be something that really holds departments accountable, holds the city accountable, and really helps to be a guidepost for where we should be allocating resources. Another companion report to this is on illegal dumping. Again, we know that this has been a scourge throughout Los Angeles, often by businesses, contractors. We map exactly where the hotspots are, what kind of illegal dumping, how long it's taking to clean up, and much, much more. And also a variety of recommendations, which hopefully the city is now going to be taking up on how do we reduce this illegal dumping, partly by increasing the fines. Some of them are too low, partly by having more cameras to both prevent and to catch folks, by finding ways to make legal dumping easier and more cost effective. And really, this is a public safety crisis, among other things. And what we see also is that a lot of it gets dumped in areas where we already have concentrations of people experiencing homelessness. And so a lot of what you see on the sidewalks didn't necessarily start with those who are experiencing homelessness, but it has now concentrated in those areas, as well as on and off freeway entrances and exits, as I'm sure many of you have noticed. Caltrans is responsible for that, and I regret to say they have not stepped up to the plate in the way that they should to really address this, and we're pushing them to do so. Another recent report looking at privacy issues. We gather a huge amount of data on every single one of us by various departments. There are millions of license plate scans each year. There are also body cameras. There are 10,000 various cameras gathering data around the city, surveillance cameras, and much more. How do we make sure we use that to create a smart city, but also one that uses that data in a responsible way that also protects people's privacy? And of course, what I'll close with is the issue of homelessness, which I believe is the existentialist crisis that we face in Los Angeles. It is a public health crisis. It is a moral crisis. It is a public safety crisis. It's an economic crisis, and so much more. And it has only grown during this time of COVID, as we, of course, all know. I have been, quite frankly, a critic of a lot of how it has been handled. in many cases by the city, by the county, by LASA. We know that this is not simple. It is not easy by any means. But what I've sought to do is to look at the data, put together a report looking at LASA, Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, how they gather their information, how they report it, how they are using it. They've got a budget of $888 million for this year. The city has allocated $1 billion for homelessness this year, including some of that will come from bond money for the construction of Triple H permanent supportive housing. That's a bond, of course, that was passed now 5 years ago by you, the voter, to provide up to 10,000 permanent supportive housing units. So far, we are lagging significantly behind. Only a fraction of those have been completed. Of the 1.2 billion in bonded indebtedness that we are able to issue, only 360 million of bonds have been issued so far. Not all of that has even been spent. So I think there's a long way to go. And my job as controller is to hold everybody responsible and to really point out where things are going well and where things are not going well and where we need to significantly improve. And to really put all this information out there in such a way that helps to maximize the dollars that we have. One last thing I will show you is our first ever LA Equity Index. And this really also ties into so many of the issues that we've talked about. What we did is we've mapped every single neighborhood in Los Angeles, and we want to look at how do we create a much more equitable city. And so we've assigned a grade to every single neighborhood in LA based on a variety of socioeconomic and other kinds of factors. We look at what are the numbers of renters versus owners, percentage of people who are health insured versus not, income levels, the presence of toxics, the air quality in a neighborhood, and much more. And we're going to continue to expand this, especially now with the creation of a new Department of Civil and Human Rights. We're partnering with them in ways that we can use this data to better align our resources and the services and the need for services in communities that need it the most throughout Los Angeles. With that, I will just say thank you so much to all of you who are on this call for your service to our city. There's so many things you could be doing on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. And here you are Zooming to hear about the work of the city and its budget. And that says an awful lot about you and about your commitment to a better city. And I will say that while we have so many challenges and so many issues that really need resolution, I'm also very much an optimist about this great city of ours. So many wonderful and talented people, so many natural gifts that this region has bestowed upon us. I'm the first in my family to be born in this country. My parents were both immigrants and came here speaking no English, and thankfully were able to create a better life for themselves. And I want to make sure that we align our resources, that we do as much as we possibly can to make sure that this generation, the next generation, the generation after that, are able to create a good life for themselves and for their children and for their grandchildren. And I appreciate all the work that you do along those lines as well. And my advertisement before closing is we're putting in the chat box how you can sign up for our emails to receive information from us, all of our various social media platforms with which you can engage with us, so that we can not only communicate with you to tell you what we're doing, but also to get feedback from you, suggestions, and much more. With that, thank you again to the organizers. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to my staff who does all this great work that you saw pop up on your screen. You just saw a little tiny sliver of it, but a taste of what you'll see much more of when you go online. And thank you so very much.